So you've got the pleasure of myself and David on the stage. Prefer Dave or David?
Dave, I'm actually David Philp the third.
Oh, right,
That's why I go by
okay.
Dave, because my dad still works.
All right, okay. Right, so we've been asked to just give a little bit of insight to our career path. And obviously we've had students here and they're looking at the pathways into the industry of construction. So, Dave, you and I have had different pathways. So I'm going to ask you some questions and about, you know, your background, how you got into construction. But start from the education side, because we're obviously in an education forum. So let's talk about your journey.
Okay, I think it's fair to say that I'm probably taking the long route when it comes to education. I was very honest, I didn't do so well academically at school. You know, I grew up in a council estate in Scotland sort of thing where being academically achievable, we wasn't big. You kind of went, you had two choices pretty much, well, three choices. You either worked in the local insurance company, you went to work on the trades with a big electrician, or you went to, it's probably Polytechnic back then sort of thing. You had three different career options. And I didn't get what I wanted to get into university. I didn't even know what I wanted to do at university, if I'm entirely honest, sort of thing. And I remember just saying to my dad, I said, I think I quite fancy, I like Lego. Oh, honestly, I mean, I said, I think I'll try construction. I remember my dad's look of horror, because my dad's a high voltage engineer. He went, they'll eat you alive. And I looked at him going, okay. So he said, get yourself a summer job. So I got a summer job on a site, and I loved it. I really loved it. So off the back of that, I'd done an HND, the Higher National Diploma in built environment sort of thing. And suddenly I got a bit of confidence up within there. It was a little bit of confidence sort of thing. And then I thought, I want to get to university sort of thing. I thought, but, you know, I want to work. And I went up to meet, I don't know if it's called the same down here, the milk round, you know, when all the big employers. Anyway, I went up to it, and there was a gentleman in the car park had a flat tyre. And I said, hey, can I help you? And he went, yeah. So he started chatting. He said, what are you doing? I said, I've just finished my HND. I'm thinking about a degree. I said, but I don't think anyone will have me. And he started laughing. He said, who do you think? He said, oh. I said, I want to see Balfour Beatty. I've always, you know, they're the main contractor. He went, don't bother. I thought, what, am I that bad? He said, to be me, you're coming to see. He goes, there's my card, phone me Monday. So he took a chance on me sort of thing. So I joined Balfour Beatty. I was there for 20 years. They were brilliant, because I'd done my degree whilst I was working within there. And then suddenly I got a wee bit more confidence about myself. I started doing my professional journey with CIOB, you know, Institute of Civil Engineer, all the professional bodies within there. And then Balfour were great, because they said to me, do you want to continue on sort of thing? And I was like, yeah. So I ended up, they sponsored my master's, you know, again sort of thing. And then they actually sent me to Stanford University to do my postgraduate diploma with there. And they continued on with sponsored doctorates and everything. So to me, and it's a life learning journey, and I found that they've been great from there. But there was one thing that changed my life.
Go for it.
One conversation.
Go for it.
I'm trying to think how old I was. Anyway, I was at Balfour Beatty, and I was looking at digitisation. I'd been out in America working and everything. I was brought back to the UK and said, you know, we've got to petition government about this. And nobody was listening to me. No one was listening. The Scottish accent and everything. I'm thinking, what is he? You know, how can he influence politics and everything? And I thought, you know, I'm making a fool of myself. I thought, that's it. I'm not doing this again. And then I got a phone call one day. And there's a very posh Englishman picked up and goes, yeah, you David Philp. And I went, yes, that's me. He goes, you and I, young Philp, are going to change the world. And I was like, who's this? And there was a guy called Andrew Wilsonholme who became the chief executive of Crossrail. And Andrew took me under his wing a bit. I said, listen, he says, I think you should go for this job in the Cabinet Office in the UK government. I said, what about Max said? You know, I come from a council house in Scotland. And he told me one thing that I never thought about. He said, what do you think the difference is somebody goes to private school and you is? He said, that's just one thing. Why not me? Yeah. Simple, isn't it? Exactly. So I think that, you know, somebody telling you, why not me? It doesn't matter where you've been, your background, having a bit of confidence with you. And that was a game changer for me. It changed my mindset. And I cared less about my accent. I cared less about a lot of things. And it was about being authentic, I think, within there. So I've taken the long route. I still teach, I still study sort of thing. And I think we're changing 100 miles an hour just now. You know, things like artificial intelligence, agentic AI, these are moving at a rate of knots that I've never seen before. And, you know, they are going to continue to change. So unless you can, my role is not to keep up with change. I've got to be one step ahead of it. I've got to be in horizon 2. I've always got to be 2, because if we're just supplying to the market, it's not a good thing. We're got to be 2. So I've rambled a lot, sort of thing, but I'm just trying to say that my journey has been long, and I think I've learned more by taking the long route.
But that's been good, right?
Yeah,
because by doing the long route, it's exposed you to things that have been testimony to where you are now.
Yes, the people along the road. Yeah,
absolutely. And what did your parents say?
Oh, it's funny because my dad and I are the same name, so my dad still works in construction. My dad's a high voltage engineer. Dad's 78 sort of thing now, but dad's still a consultant with there. And I love the fact that I can still talk and relate to him. And I think the big thing for him, it's probably not so much about me, but his granddaughter now.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So that's a great route that you've done, and you're very highly respected. You're here, and you're impactful for the industry as well, and also for the next generation. I'm going to end up asking you more questions rather than me talking about me, because I'm just really curious about your journey. So tell us a little bit about when you started to see that, I really enjoy this. And you've mentioned the big company, one of the tier 1 contractors, Balfour Beatty, and it's humongous. What support have you been given along the way? Because you said, you didn't go the traditional route, you didn't have a degree in terms of, going to private. Well, who was there for you that you could, buddy up next to, or just know that when days weren't good, that you could turn to?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. When I first started in the world of main contracting, there was a fundamental change. When you used to have these people, construction supervisors, and how you put it is like being back at school. It was the biggest boy. They were generally about 6'2". They were really good at fighting and shouting. And they were told they couldn't do that anymore. The industry was changing. It was becoming more professional sort of thing. But suddenly you had all these people round about you that were and it was quite intimidating, when I started my career sort of thing. You think, gosh, who do you go and get some advice of? And I think one of the things that I discovered very early doors, if you go to a project director, somebody quite senior, just knock on the door, introduce yourself and go, hey, I've just started, I may be struggling a bit with something. You find that most people, if they're a good leader, take the time out. And it's funny because, their construction director at Balfour Beatty, still a good friend, he was very good at coaching you. But you've got to be honest and actually ask the question and you do have a problem, be authentic, say, you know what, I'm struggling. And I think that's a lot of young people, they don't want to say that, they're frightened, if you like, to say, I'm struggling within there as well. But one of the things I believe in, and I'm both a mentor up in Scotland. We've got, it's a worldwide thing, it's called Women in BIM, digital technology. I'm chair of it up there, sort of thing, as an ally more than anything. It's one of my friends that set it up, sort of thing. And it's about mentorship. And I think one of the things that I've always had, and lucky enough, is mentors. Just people that you can go to and go, hey, what do you think? I'm a mentor for a few people, not just within industry. And I think mentorship is hugely important, that you can have folk that you can just pick up the phone and go, I'm having a really bad day. I need a bit. And I think one of the things that construction used to be really bad at, we focus very much on IQ. You're a good engineer, you're really good at mathematics or such like, but do you have the emotional intelligence? And I think a really good leader has got that balance. They're emotionally intelligent as well as having, a good IQ and balance. And unfortunately, a lot of people of my generation are very good with IQ, not so much with the EI, but that's changing. And I think we've got to be very good as well at saying to people, how's your day going? And asking twice. Because I think within construction, our mindset is, I'm good. It's that sort of thing. And it's not the case. We've got one of the biggest suicide rates of any industry, because it's a high stress profession at times, within there. You're often, when I was young, you're working away from home sort of thing, so, it's suddenly you need the network around it. And I think as our industry has advanced, I think we've got that network, around about us as well now. I think it's making it fun as well, shouldn't it?
100%. So one of the things, obviously, we're here, and I'm conscious your time and your.
Did I look so my watch there? It was good. It was good.
Oh, we're good, right? And today's all about careers, and we've had some, lecturers in here. We've got some teachers, educators. Now, too many time we hear really horrible things, or we put a lot of pressure on the teaching, and they're not doing enough in some instances, and I get upset about that because the education is stretched. How can we as a sector help education, just specifically around the construction? What more can we do to support?
Yeah. I think number one is being industry led. Speak to industry. What is industry actually looking for when young people come out, and that's not just for universities, further education. Ask what skills they need. One of the things we're seeing up in Scotland just now is the further education colleges are way ahead of universities when it comes to construction and digital technologies. What's happening is we're seeing universities, and I still teach up at Heriot Watt, and it's knowledge. Everything's 90% knowledge. They know what a digital twin is, but could they code it? Could they integrate data? Absolutely not. Now, if I go to our local college, Motherwell College, they're doing world skills, the Olympics, if you like, for digital skills. You should see what these young people can do, 18 years old sort of thing. They're athletes when it comes to, because they've got the right balance of skills and knowledge. And I think we've got to make sure that, when young people come out, they've got the balance, they're relevant, they can actually deliver on day one. And I know from my own journey, the fact that I went the long route, the HND, you learned how to work a Fioda, you learned how to work digital instruments. Where I worked out, the first day in site, it was great, you work these things, but you'd all these people come from university going, I know what one of them is, I can tell you theoretically about everything, but they didn't know how, they never took one out of a box before. So I think we've got to get the balance. And I work a lot out in Hong Kong, Singapore, and the young people come at universities, the skills they can do in terms of coding and AI and everything is like, whoa. Whereas I think we've got a bit of arrogance in the UK that, when it comes to actually having, the rubber hitting the road and things like modelling, we'll subcontract it to Vietnam or somewhere in India. You think, wait a minute, why are we not teaching young people out there? And you're thinking, when you go out to other countries, you think, you guys have got it right now. You're going to accelerate above us because they've got the practical skills and the knowledge.
Brilliant. So conscious of your time, but just for the audience, because we're halfway through 2026 and there's been a lot that's happened. There's lots happening in the economy, in the world itself, globally. So what's the remainder of 2026 like for you, David, and what you're doing at Bentley?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting time. I think, we've talked about artificial intelligence a lot today, as if it's something new. Artificial intelligence is not something new. It's been there for decades, hasn't it? You remember when you were a kid, sort of thing. Yeah, but you used to get presents at Christmas. You'd get, a computer that could play chess. It can do one thing, the very narrow. Yeah, it could beat Gary Kasparov or somebody. Used to get. AI's been about in some guises for many, many years. And I remember if you went back to maybe, the years, around about maybe 2000, I was on a site and a university lecturer, a professor came in, he went, we're doing this AI sort of, research because we need data. Can we get data? I was like, sure, fill your boots. He went, oh, where is it? He went, it's in the drawing rack. It's in these folders up there. There was nothing computer readable. We couldn't feed the large language models. We couldn't create these algorithms because we didn't have the data. In the last decade, we've now got building information modeling, structured information that's feeding digital twins. It's feeding, if you like, the large language models there. This is going at an incredible rate. I've never seen such change happening, for good and for bad. You can imagine, what does it mean? Well, people want to automate things. If you automate things, they're looking for less engineering hours in there as well. So we've now got to look, how do we create extra value? So it shouldn't be about, just how do we reduce the amount of people. Now we've got a co-pilot, no pun intended, but, we've now got these to support us. We should be a position that actually, it's not about doing less, but actually it's about doing more. How can we give more value in terms of what we do, make something more sustainable in terms of what that looks like, so how it fits in the communities more. But I think there's going to be that AI acceleration is going to be incredible.
Do you think there'll be a skills shortage? We sit here today and say, there's a skills shortage.
There is.
But if we look at technology and where there's certain things that technology can actually replace certain tasks, and Dr. Bowler, we talked about this at UK Reef last couple of weeks ago. there's certain tasks that AI can deal with, right?
Yes.
So if you look at that, that's actually taking out some of the skills that already, or the bodies that are in the construction business. So that's freeing up humans, right? So do we not see that, you know, the better use of technology for the tasks that can be automated will then free up the skills to apply in other roles? And over time, there will be no skill shortage.
I think the skill shortage is going to be there for many, many years, and my logic behind that is again, it's not so much in terms of the new assets within that we build. You know, there'll become more pre-manufactured value from there, but it comes back to, you look at UK, you look at our water networks, the leak. We've got all these things that we've got to improve in terms of what we've got. The big thing is, I think we'll see, Bo's mentioned it several times, is digital twins. We're at the early stages of it, aren't we? We're thinking about digital twins to help us build more effective, to operate an asset. But the big thing we forget about is built environments there to do something. The schools that we create, if we get it right, they should get better educational attainment. Our hospitals should get a better patient recovery rate. Now, I think this is where we'll start to think about the impact of the assets we build. Now, I'll give you an example. Scotland's getting ready to build its next new super hospital up. It's £1 billion hospital. Now, you can imagine in Scotland what happens when you come in for an operation. A lot of operations are cancelled in day one because of several things. The patient isn't ready for it. So imagine your digital twin is not just about the hospital, but the patient as well. And this is one of the things we're looking at, a complete pathway, the digital twin of the human that will interact and how that acts with the built environment. Imagine you get a band that comes in, before you come into the hospital, it's got all your details on it with your operation. You get a kit a couple of days before that maybe, you know, you're going to monitor blood pressure and everything. Wait, in Scotland we can tend because of our deep fried Mars bar habit. But it'll know when you come in prior to going to your hospital, are you ready for your operation? Yeah. So you create that pathway. The person, it knows you're in because your band tells you in. It'll monitor your pathway through it, you know, within there. It'll look to make sure there's enough medical gas for your operation. It will start to balance the systems. When you've finished, you know, your operation, you come to recovery, it'll make sure you've got enough natural light. It'll make sure the acoustic quality good. But there's the big thing. You can imagine you've had your operation, you're ready to go out. You know, you're maybe an elderly person like Bo, not like Bo. Imagine. What's the big problem? It's things like care packages. You know, they're not ready. You know, the local community needs a social work package for someone to go out. Imagine the digital twins integrated with that one now. So the person, it's a seamless flow. Now, if you get a better, healthier population that's committing less crime, that's actually getting better educational attainment, the benefits for society are huge. And I think we're going to build better, we're going to operate them better, but when we get to societal impact, trains that run better, what that means to the economy, what it means to the health and well-being. To me, that's the hope that what we do, it goes beyond. We actually realise digital twins, think about the impact to society that we can do. You can imagine, you know, being able to determine from a national digital twin, what's the impact if maybe 2 signals go down at Clapham at 7 o'clock on a Monday morning sort of thing. How can we reroute people round about? Because otherwise the impact to business and society can be huge if the surgeon can't get in to perform the operation or such like. So that's what I think we'll get to. I think our mission will get bigger, wider, more valuable. Brilliant. It's quite exciting, isn't it?
Very, very exciting.
I might not bother retiring on that beach. You know, I might continue.
The future is bright. The future is construction. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you for the time as well.
Brilliant.
Oops, sorry.